Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to another episode of my summer deep dives on EFL debate. I'm covering all clubs across the EFL between mid-June and mid-July. Already some uploaded to YouTube and Spotify, so you can go and check those out once you're done, of course, with this particular episode. And on this one, we're covering Bristol Rovers after a safe mid-table finish in their first year up in League One. But they're going to lose two or three key players, so can their Joey Barton's side really build on that season and possibly push towards the playoffs? So we're going to find out in this conversation where they're at. And I'm delighted to be joined by Max Alderson from Gascast. How are you, Max?
I'm very well, thanks, Gab. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, delighted to be joined by Max for his expertise. And we're also joined by, and also from Gascast, by Neno. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Gab. Thanks for having me on. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And a third guest we've got this time round. What a treat that is. We're joined by Charlie Hayne from One Rovers Vlogs.
Yeah, evening, Gav. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's my absolute pleasure, mate. So I'm going to come to you first then, Max. How do you reflect on the last couple of years for Bristol Rovers? Because there was one point midway through the 21-22 season when you're deep into the bottom half of League Two, and it looked like another tricky season. And then all of a sudden, you got a few loanees in January, and Elliot Anderson and a couple of the defenders came in and shot into third. And then you did well out of the loan market again last season. So you must be really pleased with the strides you've made over the last 18 months.
Yeah, it's great progress. I think we can't forget that we were in a pretty strong position in League One not too long before that, and we had quite a sharp drop down into League Two, which we then found ourselves, fighting to recover and get back to where we were. So while it's good, we've had a good couple of years. I think we are in effect just back where we were and where we have been for the majority of the last 10 years, which has been the bottom half of League One. So in terms of like the strides, I mean, I'm pleased we bounced back as effectively and as quickly as we did. And I'm also pleased with the kind of foundations that we're now setting with getting our good talented players on longer contracts, securing future prospects, and using the loan market intelligently, not just to get immediate quality in, but as almost like a try before you buy kind of system for young players who look like they're going to be set to be released from Premier League and higher end Championship clubs. So I'm pleased with how we've kind of set up, but I think there's a lot of work to do if we are going to kick on from being a bottom half League One side, which is what we have been for, I think, 7 of the last 10 seasons.
Yeah, well, let's see if that's going to happen. Neno, it feels like Max compared it to the situation Bristol Rovers were in a few years ago after just coming up from League Two under Darrell Clarke, and I feel like this situation is easier in some respects and harder in others. Last year, it was a pretty stable core with an experienced group of players in the sort of late 20s and early 30s kind of age bracket. And what you get in terms of the advantage of that is a really good culture that was in place and a really sort of stable core. But probably the disadvantage would be that you didn't have as much potential. More recently, I think Bristol Rovers have had a lot of potential in the squad, which is in many ways a big advantage because you've got the likes of Aaron Collins, but you've also relied on loanees who are going to have to be replaced. So, how do you sum up the current situation and what's required in order to progress further?
Yeah, I think last season we did have a lot of loanees with us, definitely, and they've pretty much all departed now. And it does kind of leave you with a bit of a hole in the squad going into this season. So we've kind of lost a lot of the team who was with us last year. We've still got a decent solid basis to build on. But there are a lot of players that do need replacing. And I also just think we need a general upgrade in the quality of the squad anyway, just to kick on to the next level, which the owner and Barton have said that they want to do. So I would, to be honest, I would like going forward for us to rely on the loan market a little bit less, especially in certain positions. So especially in defence, our defence last season was very young. And I feel like we were punished for that quite a lot. There was a lot of naivety at the back, and we kind of needed one or two experienced heads back there. And you know, Barton's mentioned already that he's going to look to probably change that this summer, change the recruitment policy and look to get some more League One ready experienced players in. And I think you can still use the loan market effectively, definitely. But I think we also need to look at now recruiting more League One ready players who have played 100+ games at League One if we do want to kick on to the next level, because you look at especially the sort of back threes or back fours of the teams who were in the top 6 or 7 last season, and they were full of experienced sort of pros, gnarly pros who have been there and done it. And we just didn't have that at all. We were punished over and over again last season for the youth in our back line. So yeah, I would like to see us continue with the smart loan recruitment, but also just bring in some more experienced players going forwards, I think.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword, Charlie, isn't it? Because I think it's one thing trying to find that balance, which Neno suggested, which I think is going to be important. But at the same time, Bristol Rovers played with a really high line last season. So can you play the style of football that you've built your success on over the last 2 seasons with too many sort of older players?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of goes both ways, but, you know, every single Rovers fan knows that, yeah, if you look at last season, we conceded 73 goals. And like the lads have alluded to, we've got quite a young team, even though we've had quite a lot of experience, it's still fairly young, especially the defensive side of things. So, yeah, it's obviously still, you know, Barton still wants to play sort of a high line, but we do need, you know, like Neno said, players that have played over 100 games at this level, because if you want to try and have a better season and better defensively, then, you know, you need to stop conceding silly goals. The amount of set piece goals we conceded last year was ridiculous at stake. So it is sort of half and half. You do want, obviously, sort of a young team, which we built around, but you do need, especially in defence, that's where we sort of, you know, we sort of got away with it in League Two. But in League One, you know, where there's, you know, experience and better quality of players, you do need the experience at the back, because, you know, 73 goals is just crazy. And if it wasn't for the amount of goals we scored, we could have been in a far worse situation last season.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking of experience, Grant Ward for me was a really important player last season, Max, because he seemed to be able to just do the simple things so well in midfield.
Yeah, hugely. He's kind of stepped into Paul Coots' entered a step up in quality as well. Not that Paul Coots wasn't an exceptional player in his day, but I think at his age, I think the quality that Grant Ward could bring into the side couldn't really be understated. He's been very, very good in the transition. He's been very versatile. He's played as a defensive midfielder. He's played in a flat 2, flat 3. He's played attacking midfield at the tip of a diamond. He's just excelled at all of them, really, without being remarkable. He's just been very, very steady. And I think when you do have so much youth in your side, which, you know, draws inconsistency, and older heads who maybe can't always perform to the levels they used to, which also draws inconsistency, it's good to have someone like Grant Ward who is just that solid, consistent 6.57 out of 10 every week in the middle of the park. And I'm really glad that we've been able to sign him on a 2-year deal now. When he came in, there was obviously a big concern about his injury record, the amount of games that he'd missed over the last few years, but he hadn't available for a single game between the day he signed and the end of the season. So he's definitely proved his fitness, he's proved his credentials, and I'm really pleased that we've been able to tie him down and not had him nicked off by a top half, you know, playoff chasing side who just wanted to add that bit of nous to their squad. So he's a good pickup, and he represented a really strong start to the window, I think, that we've been able to secure his services.
Yeah, absolutely. Great news there. I've got to move the conversation on to Aaron Collins, Neno. And I remember Max saying, I think towards the end of the 21-22 season, that Aaron Collins isn't far off of really exploding in terms of goal scoring form and productivity. And I think we actually saw that in League One last season when he won the EFL Player of the Year for the division. first of all, did that sort of catch you by surprise that he won Player of the Year? And secondly, what do you think of your chances of either keeping hold of him or at least getting the right fee?
In terms of catch me by surprise, yeah, a little bit, to be honest. I think because his first 6 months of the season were absolutely unbelievable. He was kind of a championship level player in the first 6 months, and his goals and assist numbers up to December, January were just off the charts, really. You know, he'd got double figured goals and assists by December, I think it was, or New Year. But then the second half of the season, there was a really big drop off from him, not only in terms of the stats, but also in terms of his overall play. I'm not sure why that was. I don't know if his head was turned back in January or the disappointment of missing out on a few Wales squads around that time or what it was. But I think his form kind of hit a downturn at the same time as ours as a team overall, which probably didn't help. But I think, from what I understand, the voting for the player of the year was kind of done earlier in the season anyway. So probably when he was in that sort of hot run of form. So that probably explains it, because I think if it had been done towards the end of the season, when I think he only scored 3 goals and got 1 assist in the second half of the season, which for a player of his quality is pretty poor, to be honest with you. But he was absolutely integral to us last season in terms of keeping us up. You know, I think, probably easy to say, but you take Aaron Collins out the squad from last season, and I think we go down, to be honest. Really? So yeah, I think he was absolutely vital to us, you know, comfortably surviving as we did. In terms of keeping hold of him, I think the second half of the season did us a favour in that respect, in that I think a lot of the clubs who probably started watching him in the second half of the season didn't see anything like the sort of player they would have seen if they'd been watching him in, you know, the first few months. So that gives me a bit more hope that we can keep hold of him. But to be honest, in some respect, for a club like Rovers, it's absolutely integral that you bring in players like Collins on a free, and then a couple of seasons later, you sell them on for 2-3 million. It's kind of what we need to base our whole business plan around. So if we can get that sort of fee for him, I think sort of anything above 2.5 million, I think Rovers would snap a club's hand off, and I think rightly so, because it's what we need to do going forwards, is make smart pickups like that and then sell them on for a lot of money in the future. It's what Peterborough have done for years, and we need to get a lot better at doing that. So if he goes for that sort of money, then, you know, in my opinion, happy days, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I'd caveat the form in the second half of the season with the fact that I think sometimes motivation's a difficult thing when you're pretty sure you're not going to get into the playoffs and you're not going to go down sometimes, and you're facing teams that are, you know, that do have the possibility of either of those things. I think that can be a bit difficult. But coming to you on that, Charlie, if Rovers can get the kind of fee for Aaron Collins that Neno's maybe suggested, the club could do a lot with that money, couldn't they? Both on the field and off it.
Yeah, they could. I mean, that's the thing you asked, because he's now got 2 years left. And the thing with Rovers in the past, we've had quality players that have been either with a year left, and we've not got the full thing. Same with Clark Harris. We got, I think, 1.2 million. He had a year left. So thing is with Collins, do you keep that, keep him, and then with a year left, let him go for a lot less? Or, do you sell him? But obviously we have to keep him, because like Neno said, if it wouldn't because the thing with Collins is not just about goals, it's chances created, it's assists. He got the most chances created, assists, goals, everything on those numbers at Rovers. So he was, a vital player, and we do, keep him and sort of, build the team around him, because he is obviously the main vocal point of our team, and like I said, with creativity. So hopefully there's not been a lot of interest so far. We've Neno and Max have alluded to his form in the second half of the season, which sort of incidentally, I think, with the whole team, because we do go through Collins with a lot of, our play, and we look for him to be the man to create. But hopefully no one comes in, and we can go again next season with Collins, and hopefully add quality to that. With him in the squad.
Yeah, I mean, I think Collins going, Max, would certainly allow you to bring in the quantity of player that you need without losing too much in terms of the budget. Because with the number of loanees going, it is going to be required to be quite an extensive number of signings. Do you think it's going to be into double figures, the number that you bring in this summer?
But I don't think so. I think it will probably be maybe 7 or 8 or 9, I would say, and then potentially into January a couple more on loan or on permanent freeze. I think on Collins, if he was to go, I would just be concerned at the amount of goals you'd be losing from your team. I think combined goals and assists was 26, I believe. So you're losing 26 goals from your side, and it's all about if you do replace that. I mean, you saw when Clark Harris went to Peterborough a few years back, and Ben Garner was pretty much given £1 million to go and build this ideal squad of players. He signed Max Amer, he signed Jack Baldwin, Zane Westbrook he spent a fee on, who looked a really good pickup, who could then be profitable. Brandon Hanlon looked a really good pickup. Sam Nicholson. So a really good kind of core of players, but a lot of those vastly underperformed, and we ended up getting relegated for umptitude of reasons. But if you don't replace appropriately, then you can be in big trouble. So it just depends on how wisely we spend it. What I will say is, I think since Barton has come in, 80% of his signings have been really, really solid. And probably, as is the case with all managers, 20% fall by the wayside. That's just the way it goes.
Sure.
No manager's got a perfect record, but I think Barton, on recruitment, him and his team have done very, very well. I think not just Collins, but you look at the young players he signed from last season, like Lewis Gordon and James Connolly as well. I think 2 players there who go on to potentially be £1 million men plus, tying down the services of Luca Hall as well. So there's umptitude. But I think in terms of how we will recruit this summer, I think we've got a good core. We're just missing an array of defenders, a forward and some wingers. But I think we have certainly the makings of a good squad. And I think the loanees that we've lost are certainly replaceable. Definitely. I think when you look at the League Two season, when we lost Elliot Anderson and Connor Taylor, those are 2 players who were far above the level. I think the loanees we've had this year, none of them really, other than maybe Josh Coburn for a few months, really blew the division out of the water. So I think they're all pretty replaceable, and I think we will do. So I think, probably 8 or 9 signings. Hopefully we start making some moves in the next week or 2. I know we've got more back in training next week, so we'll expect to see some movement soon.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to touch on replacing Collins. It's been quite a big theme in this conversation, but I think that's appropriate given how tough a player and how crucial that's going to be to the Gases season. Neno, is there anyone currently in the building that you think could step into the vacancy that's left by Aaron Collins, or even Josh Coburn while we're at it?
No, to put it bluntly. I think, yeah, do you want to move on? No, I think the only man I look at and potentially think we could get a bit more out of creatively is Anthony Evans, who in League Two for us was sort of played centre attacking midfielder / number 10 and got quite a number of goals and assists, and was sort of a real creative spark for us that season. And then last season, he was kind of played in a deeper position. So he went from being a centre attacking midfielder to more of a sort of box-to-box number 8. And although he performed well there in terms of his all-round game and his defensive side improved, we got more from him in that side of it.
He played out wide as well, didn't he?
He did play out wide a few times, which I don't think suits him at all, to be honest. But we lost a lot of the goals and assists from him. And I'm just wondering whether if Collins goes, you then see Evans pushed back up, sort of behind a different striker who we bring in, and whether Barton looks to Evans to sort of recreate his numbers from League Two season. So I think him potentially, but in terms of just goal scoring alone, I think no, not really. There's no one who could replace him, I don't think, in the current squad. I mean, Marquis, for the number of minutes he played, to be fair, his goals to minutes ratio was really, really good last season. And I think, I think we kind of worked out that if you'd played him over 40 odd games in the season, you probably get maybe 15 to 20 goals out of him. So if he could recreate that, that would be, something. But I think we would need to bring in. I don't think you could go out and get one player that would replace Collins. There just isn't a player out there who could offer everything he did. You would need to go out and try and rebuild the attack in general with probably 2 or 3 men coming in and offering a little bit of what he offered overall. So it would be a hell of a task. But yeah, we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, it's a little bit like Tottenham losing Bale or Aston Villa losing Grealish, where sometimes you can bring in some really good players, but it's hard to replace that star individual. But Charlie, I want to come to you. If we explore on Neno's suggestion that maybe Anthony Evans comes into sort of the hole that Aaron Collins vacates, would there be an emphasis? Max talked about bringing in wingers, but do you think, with Anthony Evans maybe operating a little bit deeper in the hole than maybe Aaron Collins would, is there more of an emphasis on bringing in inside forwards rather than wingers? Charlie?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. To be fair, I think it's completely different. I think that was quality in League Two. It's sort of a completely different. Obviously Collins and then Evans really too, but League One it's tough. But like Neno said, I think you just got to bring in sort of a few different players. I think it's hard, very hard to find a sort of centre forward / striker like Collins, or even winger. He played winger second half of the season, that can create and score goals. So I think it's completely different. Obviously, Evans has got to do better next season. With sort of Collins in that, it's completely sort of different. I think completely different playing sort of position. But hopefully, so far so good. Really seen many links with Collins leaving, but hopefully we don't get to like what Rovers have happened in the past. We get to near the end of the window and someone comes in for him and he leaves, and then you're sort of screwed. So yeah, hopefully we can get adequate replacements in. But because of the form from last season, from January onwards, hopefully he can us and be a part of something special. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, for sure. Max, I feel like Bristol Rovers were at their best last season when they played this sort of slick transition game, if you like, where it was high energy, but a lot of the football was kind of on the floor and kind of moved it forward quickly into Collins and Coburn. There were times when Joey Barton maybe looked for the plan B of going a bit more direct to Ryan Loft and even John Marquis, and it didn't really work out for me when he went for that option. Do you think next season's going to be about sort of refining plan A rather than looking for a plan B?
Yeah, I think so. I think all of Barton's seasons, he started with a 3-4-3. That's been his go-to. I think he sees what's in the top half of League One, where I think it was 5 of the top 6 all played 3-4-3 last season. And I think he sees that and thinks, I want to try and replicate that. I want that at my club. And I don't think we've had the players to do it, although he's kind of been a bit of an idealist with it. So that's kind of how we've started both seasons, both in League Two and in League One under him. And indeed, when he came in League One when we were facing relegation. And then he kind of falls back to a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1 kind of adaptation. So I think Barton has got multiple plans, and both have kind of had their stints, and both have worked well at times. I think what he needs to do is kind of redefine the plan A for sure. If he is set on doing 3-4-3, then we really need to go in on the right players to make that system work, such as the wing backs. The front three need to be of a really high quality to make that work and create. And I think we did show signs of it. I think you look back to last year when you said our best stint, it was playing a 4-3-3. With Collins as attacking midfield and then Loft and Coburn up front as kind of like 2 bulldozers. And that worked quite well because we'd have our defensive line really high. We'd have those 2 big forwards pushing the defence really far back, playing quite direct, and actually just winning a lot of knockdowns for the likes of Collins and Evans to kind of do their thing. And that worked quite well, but we did concede an absurdly high amount of goals doing it. I think that's why post-Christmas, We had a lot of like the 6-3 loss to Lincoln, the 4-3 loss to Exeter, both at home. I think, Barton looked at that and thought, we've conceded 10 goals in 2 games at home. We need to shift it. We need to be more sensible and rational. And that's kind of the system we ended up playing, but we didn't really have the individuals in that 4-3-3, the deeper 4-3-3 that he played to go and cause enough problems for other teams. So I think, having a plan and having the players for that plan are obviously key to any successful side, but versatility as well is also important. So I think it'd be good. I think, the first 4 or 5 signings we'll make, we'll kind of get an idea as to what he wants to do and the system he wants to play. So I think right now he's had 2.5 years at the club. He's had to deal with a few problems such as trying to keep us up, trying to get us promoted, trying to keep us up again. Now he's kind of got free reign to kind of go and express himself. There's no excuses anymore. This is his squad. He's built the culture. He's built the recruitment process. They're all his staff. It's his players that he's had for 2-3 years now. So I think we're now going to see what the game plan is and what Barton has in mind to try and take us to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. Neno, Max mentioned there the 6-3 loss to Lincoln, but I probably dare say that it doesn't help having a 39-year-old midfielder at centre-back when you're trying to hold a high line. So I think that central defence is going to be really Charlie's laughing at that one. I think central defence is going to be really important for next season. You've mentioned there about adding somebody a little bit more experienced with a bit of organisational nous. Do you think we're looking at 2 or 3 defenders coming in this summer?
Yeah, definitely. So off the top of my head, I think James Connolly is the only centre-back we actually have at the club at the moment. And he had a really difficult season last season. So he excelled in League 2 alongside Connor Taylor. But last season, to be honest, he looked out of his depth for a lot of his appearances in League 1. That's not to say that he can't go on to be a good League 1 player, and maybe he will be this season. I'm not ruling that out by any means, but last season was not a good season for him. So I would be wary about us starting next season with him as one of our first choice centre backs. So I think you definitely need at least 2 or 3. I think if Barton's going to want to play a back 3, which I think, as Max has said, is usually how he likes to start seasons at least, then, you need 3 centre-backs in every game, obviously. So you'll then need in probably 4 or 5 centre-back options to rotate and to cover for injuries and things like that. So I think centre-back will be one of the main positions that we recruit in. And I know that James Wilson is someone that we've been quite heavily linked with from Plymouth.
Ooh, okay.
It's gone a bit quiet. Apparently he was in for a medical last week. We've not heard anything since then, but on paper, at least, he's the sort of player that you look at and think he's exactly what we didn't have last season in terms of just a 6'3" plus head it, kick it, defends the box type centre back that we were lacking. So I think someone like him and probably 2 or 3 others will come in, is my prediction.
Yeah, I think James Wilson would be a fantastic signing because he was Player of the Year at Ipswich. I think this was in the 2021 season. And then with Plymouth Argyle, he was part of the squad that got 80 points the following season. And then last season went up with about 98, I think it was. So certainly he's a proven performer at this level. And I think that bit of experience, especially, Charlie, if you play him in the middle of a back 3, because that if you can get some quick players either side of him, the lack of pace won't be as big of a problem in a high line. So are you expecting 3-4-3 to be the starting formation next year?
Yeah, for me, hopefully, because that's the formation that got us just outside the playoffs just after January. It was sort of 3 at the back with 2 centre mids, Gordon and Sinclair as sort of the wing backs, wingers, if you will, and then Collins just playing really well. We were still conceding goals, but it was sort of, and obviously the Lincoln game was just I think a one-off, because the fact I don't think we had any centre backs playing, or maybe just one, and obviously, like you said, you had Whelan in there as well. So that was from, I think, early October to January. That was where I think we went on about a 13-game unbeaten run in all competitions, playing really well, scoring goals, creating, looked solid, but not, we were still conceding goals, but it wasn't like the second half of the season where we're getting thumped 5-1 at Morecambe. And stuff like that. So yeah, up till just after January, we were 7th or 8th. And the season was really poor. But yeah, I think with especially Wilson, although it has been a bit dodgy that it's gone quiet, because we were last Tuesday, it said medical, etc. And now over a week we've heard nothing since. So that is a bit worrying, because the quality of him, and people say, he's 34, but he still played most of their games last season, and of course in a back three. And the experience that we need closer to home, even though he did come through the ranks at the other team in Bristol when he was younger. But yeah, he's got, he's full of quality, over 375 appearances, won the league title 4 times in his career, so it just brings that winning mentality and quality.
Yeah, for sure. Max, I would expect, even though James Wilson played quite a lot on the right of a back three for Plymouth Argyle, I'd expect him to play in the middle, because you've kept Luca Hall from last season. So if it's 3-4-3, Luca Hall will probably play right of a back three, or play right back if it's a back four. How important is he going to be next season? Because he, for me, is a really intelligent, steady operator.
Yeah, his versatility as well is becoming a real asset. I think when he played right back and right wing back and was encouraged to push upwards, I definitely had reservations at the start of the campaign. But going into January, February, he was going round players, playing lovely 1-2s with the centre mids and getting in behind and playing nice balls across the byline. So he's got a real good attacking flair about him, and he's just growing in confidence. He's growing in height as well. I mean, the kid is 20 years old, so he's still physically developing. He's going to fill out a little bit as well.
It feels like he's been there for a while. I'm surprised he's only 20, actually.
Yeah. He's so he broke into the team at around 18 in League Two. So he's been there a couple of seasons and been playing pretty well and just improving as he's gone. So he's a player who I would love us to sign a 3-year deal with this summer. Just get him tied down, because I just know he's going to be a really big talent. And like I said, with his height, he's 6'1", I believe. If he keeps filling out, centre back, I think, is where he sees his future. I think he sees himself as a centre half for most of his career. So I think right hand side of a back three would suit him perfectly. And I think on the left hand side, we need to recruit, but we've also got good option there with might not be a popular option because he's quite small, but I think when needed, I think Lewis Gordon did a tremendous job at left centre back in the early part of the season. So while we will need to recruit, I think if James Wilson comes in and Hall goes there, we're starting to look a lot healthier already. I've no doubt we'll try and sign a left-footed centre back as well to kind of bring that balance that's needed in that system. Hopefully that's Lewis Gibson from Everton, either on loan again or potentially on a free transfer, but we'll see on that front. But yeah, I think for sure Luca is an exceptional talent. He's playing tonight for Wales under 21s. He's going from strength to strength. So I definitely want us to try and tie him down, as he's one of our strongest assets. And as Ollie was saying earlier, becomes that conveyor belt of signing £1 million men. It really starts to kind of elevate you, and then you can start to spend a bit more on the players you sign from non-league and League Two, and then you suddenly start this positive upward trajectory of of buying low, selling high, like Peterborough have kind of built their model on for years to overachieve at this level. And that's definitely what Rovers need to do in their current stadium and current state if they want to kind of kick on to the top half and maybe even beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you can tie down Luca Hall to a long-term contract, he might not go for big money this summer, but maybe he can be your Aaron Collins equivalent next summer, Neno. But what I think in terms of the immediate, what I really like about Luca Hall and what Max has just described is that ability to, when he's grown in confidence, to actually push forward and become a right back. And I think that versatility could be really important in different phases of play, because if you have an attacking wing back in Sinclair, who's probably not going to want to do an awful lot of defending, it's really helpful that he's got the freedom to then become a winger, if you like, because you've got Luke Hull then stepping out into a right back role.
Yeah, I think the attacking side of his game is something that really came out in the last sort of few months of last season. You know, up until that point, he was steady, but the attacking side of his game, we hadn't really seen the best of it, I don't think. And then, as Max kind of said, towards the end of the season, he was taking men on, playing these little 1-2s, getting down the byline. The only thing I probably would say is that if we're looking to play a back three, personally, I don't see him as a wing back, especially if we want to be a side that wants to push for top 10, top 6, as Barton has said. I don't think Luca Hall starts as a wing back for Derby, Plymouth, Sheffield Wednesday, etc. from last season, because
That's a high bar though for where Bristol Rovers
is.
are now.
It is, but I don't think his end product is there to be a wing back. You know, you look at the teams that play wing backs and are really effective at it and score a lot of goals playing that way. Most of the reason they do is because they have a right and left wing back and their delivery is on point and they're getting balls into the box and they're chipping in with goals. And, you know, you can see wing backs get 5+ goals for some of the teams that play it really effectively. Hall did score a couple last season, to be fair, off set pieces, but I don't quite see him being that level attacking wise in League One yet. There's loads of development, so maybe he will become that player. But at the moment, I see him more as kind of a right back and a back four who is effective attacking wise, but isn't exceptional, I wouldn't say yet, or on the right of a back three, where he can use his pace to kind of cover for the lack of pace for someone like Wilson. If he is the centre back, then having someone like Luca Hall as the right centre back is quite handy to sort of cover behind him if someone plays a long ball over the top. But yeah, there's still loads of development in Luca. And to be honest, I wouldn't be massively surprised if someone came in with a cheeky bid from this summer with how he ended the season and his age and his potential. And like Max said, he's making these sort of international appearances now. So I think his name is probably starting to kind of circulate around EFL, discussions around recruitment this summer, I would say.
We should shut up about it, shouldn't we, really?
I know. Yeah. Let's cut this bit. Let's move on. Yeah. But
Yeah.
no, what a player. Yeah. Loads of potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listening to you gents talk, Charlie, it feels like the Bristol Rovers squad is kind of set up for a hybrid of 3-4-3 or sort of variations of that, and maybe a 4-2-3-1, especially if you were to get someone like Lewis Gordon back on loan as more of a sort of traditional left back. So if you've got a super attacking wing back, whether that's Sinclair or someone else, you've got kind of Luca Hall sort of supporting behind him who can play right of three or right of a back four, and then you've got a sort of a wing back that can slot back in, and then you'll probably go for someone more attacking sort of on the left. So do you feel like that's kind of roughly how you're shaping up?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I think getting Gibson back, I would really like him to. To be fair, he would be playing at a higher level if it weren't for the injuries. When he was out earlier on, I think it was around September time, I want to say, for a bit. You know, when he wasn't there, and I think other games later on he missed a few. There was a big difference because he's got the composure, he's got the quality, he can play the ball out from the back. So for me personally, I know a lot of Rovers fans in the past have not liked Free at the back. Obviously, everyone's got different opinions, but for me, you know, you've seen our form when we did play it. We were 7th or 8th, and then when we reverted back to a back four, we didn't do too well. I know there's a number of different circumstances like the Rossiter injury, etc., and Bobby Thomas. Although at the time, some people might not have thought he was that good, but he didn't go to Barnsley for no reason. There's a reason why
he was brilliantly for Barnsley as well.
Yeah. There's a reason why he went to Barnsley and why when he was in the side with Gibson and a better team. So for me personally as well, I would like to see us stick with that. But like Neno said and Max have said about Hall, I would definitely. Although we did play in, I think it was Portsmouth away earlier on in the season when we were sort of having our slow start, an awful start like Rovers usually do. I think it was Portsmouth and Barnsley away. Luca Hall played centre back, and he hadn't played centre back before. And he wasn't that good. But yeah, like you said, the potential. He's only 20, which is crazy. For me, I would have him as more of a centre back than as a wing back. I think as a wing back, you just need someone a bit quicker and a bit more explosive. Like, like you've seen, or like Neno alluded to, all the other teams, you got like Plymouth had Mumba on loan, electrifying. Connor Bradley was at Bolton. Joe Ward, who's just left Peterborough and gone to Derby on a free, which is a coup for them. Someone like that. So, yeah, I agree Luca Hall is more of a centre-back. And, he's only young, so he's still got a long way to, grow up physically, etc.
Yeah, of course. Max, I think two of the known quantities that we're working with at the moment is firstly that Grant Ward's going to be a likely starter, a regular mainstay for Rovers next season. And secondly, that Rovers are going to play with two out-and-out central midfielders, which I suppose leads me to question, what's the profile that you're going to need as a partner for Grant Ward? Do you think you're going to need a really physical box-to-box type? Do you think you're going to need a conductor, someone that can control play? Because you're not going to get all the qualities that you're after. So which ones do you think Joey Barton and the recruitment team will prioritise?
We need a tenacious box-to-box midfielder, and I think we've got one in the building in Jordan Rossiter, who's had a phenomenal first 4 months of the season before ruling himself out for the rest of the campaign. So we never actually got to see Rossiter alongside someone like Grant Ward, who can control the tempo, and have someone next to him like Rossiter who could just win those second balls, drive up the field, and cause problems. And I think he'd be perfect. The problem with Rossiter is he's not reliable in terms of his injury record. The amount of games he's played over the last 5-6 years has been nowhere near enough. I think he's averaged 17 or 18 games a season over the last 5 seasons, so in that ballpark. So we talked about this on our end of year review in terms of the midfielders, and we just said if he could play 40 games, then we'd be set. We wouldn't need to get another centre mid, but you can't rely on that. So what we need to do is go out. Jordan will be fit for the start of the season, we hope, but we need to go out and get another player of that mould, so that if Rossiter does kind of fall out the side, or it needs to be challenged in that first team position, we have someone very similar that doesn't upset the balance of the system we're trying to build. So Lamar Burgard was very good last season. I think he's a similar mould to Rossiter, albeit a lot younger, and with a lot higher ceiling. But someone like that who can just kind of do the dirty work, and just drive us forward would be great. I think when you look at the systems we want to play, at the 3-4-3 and the 4-2-3-1, in both those systems, you've got a 2 in the middle who need to run the engine room. Ward is going to be one of them, so you're always going to need that other one. If Rossiter's fit, fantastic. I think that's a really strong pairing to kind of build you can kind of then fill all the other roles around that with creativity, because those two are going to do the dirty work. You can be a little bit more flamboyant with the wing backs. That front three you can be quite adventurous with as well. So if you've got those two solid there for 40 games, then great. But we need that depth, and I think we'll get that. I think we'll go and sign another player to kind of challenge Rossiter. I think Sam Finley can do that job, probably not to a top half standard, but he can definitely fill in, and I think he's probably going to be.
He can also play as a pressing 10 as well, can't he, Max?
He can, but I don't think he'll be playing in a front three. With how we want to play, I think it's more likely that Evans or Collins is kind of going to go into that number 10 role, or even Grant Ward could push higher up potentially as well. He's known to do that as well. So, I think we've got options in the engine room for sure. But it all depends on how we want to kind of set that engine room up and who's going to go alongside Grant Ward. But for me, I think if Rossiter can prove his fitness, then there's one in the building, but we can't rely on that. We need to go and get that security option of someone who can make 40 games.
Yeah, absolutely. Neno, Max mentioned flamboyance with the wing backs, and certainly that's a word that you'd probably describe with Scott Sinclair, who's I think 34, 35 now. So he's obviously not the type that's going to go up and down, and he needs that freedom to really express himself, hug the touchline, and stay high and wide and create. But there's always that worry once players get to that mid-30s bracket. They could, even if they've had a really good season, they could drop off at any point. Is there part of you that's a bit apprehensive about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think my opinion on Scott Sinclair is quite controversial, to be honest. In
Oh,
that
go on, let's have it.
I don't think I rate him anywhere near as highly as most of the fan base do. I think last season I thought he was fine. I thought he was solid. Chipped in with a few goals, a lot of which were penalties, by the way, which is fine. A penalty is a goal, but it's not an open play goal. Didn't get many assists. I think he got 3 assists in 28 or so appearances, which for someone who's playing either as an attacking wing back or on the wing, high up the pitch in the front three, isn't brilliant, to be honest. When you've got the likes of Collins, Coburn, Marquis to aim for with your deliveries, I don't think that's great. I think in terms of you saying, he's getting older, will he kind of drop off a cliff as such? I kind of think we're in the middle of that process already with him, and that when he gets the ball, he doesn't have the pace he used to burn past a man.
Yeah.
The Celtic song, he's as fast as lightning. He's not really anymore, to be honest. He's not quite got that lightning pace anymore. So next season, for me, I'm not sure I'd go into next season with him as being one of the starting players. I'd definitely keep him in the squad to come on. He's got great experience to lend to the other attackers. He's very versatile. He played both wing-back positions. He can play both sides of a front three. He can chip in with the odd goal and assist. Of course he can. And at times he does show that quality, that he's played at a higher level, and you can see it. But week in, week out, I don't get that excitement when he gets the ball. He doesn't get me off my seat and think, he's going to get the ball and burn past this fullback, because a lot of the time he'll get it, turn back and give it back to the fullback or pass it inside. He either doesn't have the confidence to do it. Maybe he realizes he's lost the pace potentially, and he doesn't feel like he's got it in him anymore to go past a man. And I think, again, as I've said a few times on here, Barton's talked about us wanting to be a top 6, top 7 League One side. You look at those sides, they've got wing backs or wingers who they get the ball and they're running at your fullback and they're going past them and getting deliveries in the box. And Sinclair doesn't really have that in his locker anymore, to be honest, I don't think. So yeah, definitely keep him around, but he's someone who I'd kind of think he's got 1 year left with us, and I think that's kind of perfect. I think he'll be a good squad man this year and leave at the end of the season. And, that'll be a great end to his career, maybe. But yeah, I would look to probably replace him as a starting player this season.
Anyone want to challenge Neno on that?
I mean,
no,
no.
it's
I mean, to be
gone.
I mean, to be fair, it is sort of right that what he's saying. It's not the same Sinclair that was, at Celtic and is, playing in the Champions League, etc. He's still a great player. Still done some good things. But yeah, I sort of agree. Just doesn't have that to have the pace anymore. And also is quite a few games last season. His composure isn't the best either. I think there's I remember Derby at home. He had it on a plate, and he's still a great player to have around. The squad and that, and he can obviously start some games. But yeah, if we do, like Barton keeps saying and Will keeps saying about the budget, etc. If we do want to go on and improve, we sort of do need that quality on the to get, and that's why, touching on to Harry Anderson, I think that's why he was sort of a 50-50 with Rovers fans in the summer. I think where the fact that he was hardworking, versatility, but he didn't have the goals, and his obviously injury issues. I think he only started 12 games last season. He's gone to Stevenage now, but he just didn't have he only got 7 goals in 2 seasons with us. So yeah, a bit more pace in our squad as a whole, a bit more powerful pace in our squad to definitely improve, and be it like sort of those games where you could if you're against a really good team, you're struggling, bring on a bit of pace or start with pace and really fences.
Yeah, for sure. Max, talking of wing backs, would you or do you think you can or will bring Lewis Gordon back?
Lewis Gordon is our player. So,
he's your player.
He's under contract. Yes, he's got. Okay. That's good. He was a really good signing because he's the kind of player who looks like a loan player from Brentford, from a lot higher level, who you'd be gutted to lose because his development was so good. I think he came in a bit shaky, a little bit nervous against some of the better sides in the first half of the campaign, but really went from strength to strength once he kind of got a foothold on the level. I believe he's got a year left on his contract. I'd definitely look to give him a 3-year I think his ceiling is very high, 21 years old, I believe, or 22 years old. So, yeah, big potential for him. And I think, yeah, he's a great option at left back, left wing back. Would like another option there. Josh Grant has been given a new deal, 1-year deal. He was terrific for us at left wing back in League Two for the few games he played before picking up I think it was a tendonitis injury, which is notoriously difficult to rectify. Believe he had surgery on his knees and then rehab, which has taken a long time to get him back to playing shape. But yeah, I think we have some options there. But I think, yeah, depth is everything at this level because the best sides have that depth where they lose a player and they can bring in someone who can just fill in that role and not upset the system. The amount of times last season we had a player out for 2-3 months, and it kind of just means you have to change the entire shape of the side because it doesn't work without that one or two individuals. So I'd love us to get some more wing back depth in, because at the minute it is just Luca Hall and Lewis Gordon on both wing backs. You've got Sinclair who can do a job there. You've got Gibbons as well who can do an all right job, but both of those players aren't. They're bottom half players really, which is I get we're a bottom half team, but we want to finish top half. That is the aim for us now. We have been a bottom half League One team with an occasional season in League Two for the past decade. I think we've finished top half in League One once, and that was under Darrell Clark the first season we came up.
Yeah.
But I think Rovers fans want a little bit more now. We want to show a bit of ambition. I'm not saying go be a playoff team, but 12th, 11th, 10th, that's where we want to kind of kick on to now to show real progress, and that depth is needed, particularly at wing back, to do that. And we've got a good base of players now, and I'm pleased with the squad we have and the potential it has to kick on. All eyes are just going to be on the recruitment, I think, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I must have got my Lewis G's mixed up there.
Yes.
But
you're not the only one. I think we had Gibbons, Gordon, Grant, Gibson. Yeah, it was, and like Anderton, and Anderson last season as well, and yeah, very confusing. And not to mention, I think the 12 Clarks we've had in the last 10 seasons. So yeah.
All very confusing. I've got sort of stars going around my head and everything. Coming to you then, Neno, I think what Max raised there was this point about you lose one player and the whole system breaks down. And I think that's a really important point to address, Neno, because what I think Bristol Rovers have got to try and aspire to is a system where you might have a slight drop off in quality when you lose a key player, because that's kind of where you're at, but you've got someone who's similar stylistically so that the whole dynamics don't completely fall apart. What do you make of the development squad at Bristol Rovers, and are there some young players that are coming through that might be able to make a difference to the squad and just come in and do a job where needed?
To be honest, I don't really think there is. I mean, there's a couple of youngsters who we've given new contracts to in the summer. So there's Ryan Jones, who we got from Western-super-Mare a couple of seasons ago. He's been out on loan. And then there's Harvey Greenslade as well, who's a young striker who we've given a new contract to. He's been doing quite well on loan the last couple of years, but in sort of non-league level. I think it would be a very big step up for them, either of them, to be starting games for us in League One or even getting the odd sub appearance. We didn't really see them in League Two, so I struggle to see them making too much of an impact. I think they'll both be out on loan. I mean, the whole development squad, youth setup at Rovers is something that I think a lot of fans would like to see improve, to be honest. It's very few and far between when we bring a young player through who goes on to have too much of an impact in the first team. You kind of get one every 10 years if you're lucky.
It's like Cam Hargreaves. It's Hargreaves is pretty much the only one you've had in about 5 years, isn't it? It's like,
and even he, I mean, he was fine. He did a job in League Two, but I don't know where he is now. He was a solid little player, but he was he's obviously been moved on. So I think I'd like to see a lot of improvement in that. But to be honest, you look at how many really talented young players Championship and Premier League sides release every summer or let out on loan every summer. It's kind of, in a way, hard to justify pumping too much money into your youth setup, because if you can go and pick up a Lewis Gordon from Brentford and he comes in and is probably 3 times the player of any young left back we've brought through in the last 30 years, then you kind of think, well, how much money do you put in for the long term gain. I know Wiles talked about this on a few times, the owner recently, in terms of the youth setup and kind of juggling whether you want to plow money into that and kind of go down a crew route where you're trying to make 7-8 of your team every season, youth team, or whether you go for picking up youngsters. And it's a difficult balancing act, I think.
Yeah, no, it is a difficult balance, but I think there's something to be said for having a bit of a conveyor belt where you've got players coming through so that when you go into the recruitment market, you're recruiting for quality and not just, we're screwed, we need numbers sort of thing. So I do see the advantage of it, but I think it's hard sometimes, given the financial pressures that clubs are already under, to sometimes commit to that. Which, talking of financial pressures, Charlie, and ownership and that sort of topic, where are you with Wael Al-Qadi as Bristol Rovers owner?
Yeah, I mean, he's, it's been, pretty good. Within even last season, we spent a few, obviously, when he back, I can't even remember, time just flies now. I think it was a few years ago, we were badly in debt, and he's paid it all off. Obviously, there's still talk about the stadium that's been going on for since I was born.
100 years.
Yeah, something crazy. But yeah, within like, definitely financially, he's definitely added more. Especially with Barton, he's sort of backed him, and we've bought a few players. I think I'll do the same. I think he's done amazing at our club, since he's been in. It's just that, and he even throughout the summer, and I think he was on the radio before the end of the season saying, we've got this big budget, etc. Whether we'll see, with the quality we bring in. But yeah, I think a lot of Rovers fans, fully trust in the way he interacts with the fans, and especially on the financial side of things. Having spent a bit more money, although it hasn't been like loads, like hundreds of thousands, he still added Rossiter we paid for, Loft, etc. Although they might have not been massive players, which you're not going to really get at this level unless you're a top side. I think he's still added very well, financially, since he's been at the club, and in the last.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, slight internet delay there. Max, I know you Gascast have got to record shortly, so I want to wrap things up within the hour. But I just wanted to give you a sort of ask a final question of how close are Bristol Rovers to achieving what you say should be the ambition, which is pushing into the top half and maybe striving to become a top 10 side at this level?
I don't think we're far off. I mean, most sides, who finish between 10th and 18th are all just a good summer of recruitment away from kicking on. We've seen clubs in the past do it right, like Shrewsbury when they got all the way to the playoff final under Hurst. There's countless examples of sides who have overachieved on a mid-table budget. Wickham, another one, in recent years. So I think we are getting the basis right. I think Barton is a manager who, when he gets onto a good thing, it really does build, and players buy into that. And he's a very big momentum manager. We saw it, with the meteoric rise in the League Two season when we were 18th at Christmas. Me and countless others calling for his head, and the recruitment that he then did, and the hard graft in those winter months, the momentum that he built. The players just bought into it totally, and when everyone's on board, it can be something really good. And while I think we don't have the budgets of the big teams, and we are a bottom half team in this division by size and attendance and financial backing, we can definitely build on what we've done in the last year. We've seen glimpses of when we were like 2 points off the playoffs at Christmas, I believe. So it's not far off. It just depends on recruitment, and when you do have that smaller budget in the league, you have to be really smart with what you've got, because you can't really afford to waste any pennies on players who basically won't put in the graft for you and won't get you the quality that you need. So we'll see. As I've said, I really do think Barton and his team, their recruitment has been overall above our, in that top kind of quarter of where you'd expect the real quality to be signed. And I think if we can get it right, which I have faith that we will, then we won't be far off at all. But it is a fine margin, because, as I said, if you sign the wrong players, if you lose a player or two and the system goes wrong, it can also be a big drop off the other way, and then you can be staring a difficult season in the face. So long as we continue to get the fundamentals right, we get the the squad building on a core level correct, and we keep this buy low sell high mentality, then on the whole, on the balance, we should continue to improve. I think the concern is with Barton as a manager, there's no secret that he's quite volatile. It can there's the potential for it to blow up in his face a little bit if it does kind of start to go wrong. But also it could go the other way, and it could explode into something really great. So I think over the last season or two, he has kind of settled down a bit into more of a temperamental manager, and I think if he can continue to recruit in the way he has and make the strides to be to kind of build the squad in the way he has, then we can continue to progress. And I have faith that we'll get it right this year, and we'll have a marked improvement, because I agree with what he said at the end of the season. 17th last season, it represents us staying up, it represents progress, but it won't be acceptable this year. And I really like that mentality of not it being like, well, we could do better. No, it won't be acceptable if we finish 17th again. We need to push forward, and that's kind of the mentality I want from my manager. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how we do this campaign.
Yeah, well, let's hope there is further progress. Gents, such a pleasure to chat Bristol Rovers with you this evening. I've got one more question for Neno, which is, what are your plans for Gascast in terms of content for next season and beyond?
Oh, that is a good question. I think, well, this summer we want to do a few interviews. So we've got a few of the players, a few of the current squad lined up for some chats over the summer. Next season, I'd like us to do more video content. I say that all the time, and then you just never have the time with life and everything. But yeah, I'd like us to do more YouTube stuff, and probably just be a bit more consistent with our podcast. But again, life kind of gets in the way a lot of the time. And when you're in that role of there being sort of 2 games a week, it's so difficult to get the podcast out in time, and everything goes out of date within a few
the playoffs,
days.
Though, you'll be doing 3 a week, trust me.
Oh yeah, I'm doing one in the top 6. I'll be doing 1 a night. Don't worry about that. On my own, I don't care. I'll just sit there chatting at a camera every night on my own. That's fine. Probably just a bit more consistency, to be honest. But yeah, looking forward to doing a few interviews this summer. I really enjoy doing the podcast over the summer, because everything has a bit more time to breathe, and nothing goes out of date quickly. And you can, we're looking to chat to Paul Coots and Luke McCormick and a few of the squad. And I think they'll all have really interesting things to say. And it's just nice to chat to people inside the club and get the insider take on things. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Just one more, same for you with One Rovers Vlogs, Charlie?
Yeah, well, I've been thinking about it the sort of last year, because I had a bit of time off last year due to busy with work, and a bit of just to take time away, because it's been a long grind since I've last 4 years. But I'm going to have a bit of a rebrand on the channel in the next few weeks or so. I'm just thinking of plans, better backdrops, quality, trying to even sort of go in the sort of, obviously not copy, but go and make it into a podcast. Obviously like Gascast, obviously, but sort of in a different way, just to get out to more people, really. Because it's always a long grind, especially with YouTube doing videos all the time. Sure. But hopefully to sort of give it a little bit of a rebrand and a freshen up, because I had about 6-7 months where I didn't do anything, because it's just been crazy, so with work, etc., and just general life. So people can watch out for that, getting the logo and rebrand.
Perfect
do that in the next couple of weeks.
Lovely stuff. Listen, gents, thank you so much for your time to discuss the gas this evening. Really appreciate it. Thanks to you for watching at home. This has been the EFL Debate Bristol Rovers Summer Deep Dive, and we'll see you again very soon.